Blessed day, my people, and welcome back to the Daily Scoop, where we break down the biggest conversations happening in dancehall and entertainment. Today, we have a very interesting debate surrounding Vybz Kartel, Masicka Skillibeng, Intense Idonia, Vanessa Bling, and the wider Gaza movement. So, let's get straight into it. People, if there is one thing we know about dancehall, it is that the name Vybz Kartel can start a conversation almost instantly. Whether people are praising him, criticizing him, debating his legacy, or discussing the artist connected to him, his name continues to generate strong reaction. This time the conversation started with the comment made from supporters, Jungle Boss, who are questioning the idea that Vybz Kartel should be positioned above everybody else when it comes on to lyrical competition. One of the arguments being made is that Gaza supporters are supposedly encouraging a clash between Masicka and Alkaline rather than pushing for Kartel himself to enter a lyrical battle with either artist. No, that is a very strong opinion. But let's slow things down because there are really two different conversations happening here. One is about lyrical ability and clashes, the other is about branding and influence. And those two things should not automatically be treated as the same. A person can believe Vybz Kartel is one of the most influential dancehall artists ever, while also believing that another artist might be better suited for a particular lyrical confrontation. That is where things get interesting. For years, dancehall fans have debated potential clashes between major artists, and whether the name Masicka, Alkaline, and Vybz Kartel come up, the conversation becomes intense. Some fans want Masicka and Alkaline to go at each other, others want to see one of those artists directly challenge Kartel. But here is the bigger question. Who would actually make sense for dancehall right now? Masicka has already established himself as an international artist with a distinct sound and identity. Alkaline has spent years building the Vendetta brand and deliberately maintaining a certain distance from other major movements. Kartel, meanwhile, has an enormous historical footprint in dancehall. So, if you are looking at this strictly from an entertainment perspective, a lyrical confrontation involving these names would obviously generate massive attention. But whether it should happen is an entirely different question. Artists don't have to clash just because fans want them to. And sometimes the biggest business decision an artist can make is not knowing when not to respond. Then we get to Skillibeng. This is where the branding argument becomes especially interesting. Skillibeng is already an established artist in his own right. He has built an international audience and developed a recognizable style. But commenters have questioned what happened when a younger artist associated himself strongly with the Gaza identity. The argument goes something like this. If Skillibeng is presented as a prince within a larger Gaza structure, does that automatically establish Vybz Kartel as the ultimate figure above him? That is the theory. But there is another way to look at it. A strong association with unestablished movements can give an artist visibility, community, and recognition. That is something we have to see throughout music history. Artists benefit from movement benefits from artists, but eventually every artist has to answer the question, who am I outside of the movement? That is where longevity comes in, because branding can introduce you to an audience, but the music has to keep that audience. And this brings us to Alkaline. Whether somebody likes Alkaline or not, one thing is difficult to deny. He built a very recognizable identity. The Vendetta movement became a major part of his brand, and rather than positioning himself as another branch of an existing movement, Alkaline established his own lane. That decision has been heavily debated over the years. Some people interpret it it as a rebellion, others view it as a smart branding. But from a business perspective, there is something worth studying here. If you create your own movement, your own visual identity, your own fan culture, and your own brand language, you don't necessarily have to depend on somebody else's movement to establish your relevance. That doesn't mean you are more successful. It simply means you are building something that is clearly identifiable as yours. And that is one of the reasons why Alkaline remains such an important part of this conversation. Then you have Masicka, another artist who has developed a major international profile. Masicka has been connected to the Gaza conversation at different points in his career, and fans have continued to debate how his relationship with Kartel influence should be viewed. But here is the important distinction. Being influenced by somebody does not necessarily mean being permanently underneath them. Every generation of artists is influenced by the generation before. That does not mean the younger artists can't eventually develop a completely different identity. That's how music evolves. You can respect the foundation while building your own house. And that's exactly why the discussion around Masicka is so interesting. Now let's get to one of the biggest claims in the conversation. Some commenters argue that Vybz Kartel association with Gaza brand gives him an advantage whenever another artist becomes connected to it. Think about the structure. An artist becomes associated with Gaza, Gaza supporters begin supporting that artist. The artist gets additional exposure, Kartel name remains connected to the conversation, so everybody potentially benefits. From a branding perspective, that can be extremely powerful, but there is also a potential downside. If an artist becomes too independent on another person's identity, fans might continue seeing that artist primarily through the lens of the bigger brand. And that's the concern some commenters are raising about younger artists. Not necessarily that they are untalented, not necessarily that they can't become superstar, but whether they can eventually become their own institution. This is where the debate gets complicated. Imagine an artist joins a movement when they are relatively unknown. The movement introduces them to thousands or even millions of people. Eventually, the artist becomes successful. At what point does that artist become bigger than the movement? And can the artist ever completely separate themselves from the movement? Those are legitimate questions. Music history is filled with examples of artists who started with a particular scene and eventually created their own identity. Sometimes the movement remain part of their story forever. Other times the artists completely transform their image. So it's not automatically a bad thing to associate with a movement. The important thing is whether the artist eventually develop enough identity to stand alone. Another question raised by the commenter sometime is that if Vybz Kartel movement is so powerful, why didn't every major dancehall artist become part of it? Names such as Idonia, DeMarco, and Vanessa Bling have been brought into this particular discussion. Now we need to be careful here because different artists has different careers, relationships, circumstances, and creative direction. It would be unfair to reduce their entire career to one movement, but the larger question remains: why do some artists choose independence instead of joining an established camp? And whenever we're talking about lyrical dancehall, I don't deserve attention. Because who disagree about Kartel, Masicka, or Alkaline often acknowledge Idonia's lyrical ability and influence. That's why some fans have questioned why discussion about unity don't always include artists like Idonia. So, I want to hear from you. Do you think Vybz Kartel Gaza brand help younger artists build their career? Or can it make it harder for them to establish an identity completely separate from Kartel? Do you think Alkaline made a smarter decision by building Vendetta independently? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the Daily Scoop, turn on the notification bell, and share this video with somebody who follow dance dancehall. Until the next one, stay safe, keep supporting the music, and remember, debate the music and respect the people.